I used to work the night shift at a packaging warehouse outside Chicago. It was the kind of place no one noticed during the day and everyone avoided at night. The building sat at the end of an empty service road. Only a single streetlight worked in the parking lot, and even that one flickered like it wanted to quit. I took the job because I needed money fast. I told myself it was only stacking boxes and logging inventory. Simple work, quiet work, safe work. That was the setup. But the silence in that place had teeth. My shift usually started at 10 p.m. My supervisor, Carl, was a calm guy in his late 40s. He talked slowly, walked slowly, and never seemed to get stressed. Every night, he handed me a clipboard and said the same line. If you hear anything weird, ignore it. This building makes noises. I always nodded, but his tone bothered me. It felt less like advice and more like a warning he hoped I took seriously. The warehouse was huge. The ceiling sat almost 4 stories high, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead in long, sickly rows. Some of the bulbs were dead, so parts of the floor were swallowed in shadows. I usually worked the northeast section near the loading docks. That corner always felt colder than the rest. Sometimes my breath even fogged a little, but I blamed the draft from the bay doors. On my 3rd week, something shifted. I was loading boxes onto a pallet when I heard someone whisper my name. Clear as day. Evan. I spun around expecting to see Carl, or maybe another worker. No one was there. The racks stretched out behind me, empty, aisles disappearing into the dark. I told myself it was the echo of a radio from a security booth. But the way that whisper crawled across the floor made my skin tighten. The next night it happened again. Same voice, same calm tone. Evan. This time it came from above me, near the rafters. When I looked up, I saw nothing, just metal beams and cables. I tried to shake it off. Fatigue, stress, isolation. A night shift messes with your head. But then the suspense kicked in for real. Around 1:30 a.m., I want to check a stack of crates that had been delivered earlier. I turned the corner and stopped cold. There were footprints on the dusty concrete floor. Bare feet, long strides, and they hadn't been there 30 minutes earlier. The prints led into one of the unlit aisles. A black stretch of shelving where even the emergency light refused to shine. I called out for Carl. He didn't answer. I radioed him. Static. No signal. The building felt heavier, almost like it was listening to me. I told myself to follow the prints, because maybe someone had broken in. That was the logical thing to do. But every part of me knew something was wrong. The prints were too long, too narrow, and they stopped halfway down the aisle right where the shadows got thick. I leaned forward to look closer. That was when something moved in the dark. A slow shuffle. Not walking, dragging. My heart hammered against my ribs. I backed away step by step, keeping my eyes on the black gap between shelves. The dragging sound grew louder, and then I saw a shape. Tall, thin, taller than any person I knew. It swayed a little like it was trying to figure out how to stand. I couldn't make out a face, only a pale outline shifting against the dark. I turned and ran. I sprinted past the racks, past the loading docks, straight to the small break room. I slammed the door and locked it. My hand shook so much I dropped the key. The dragging sound was in the hallway now. Slow, steady, patient. Something brushed the door from the other side. I held my breath. That was the moment I understood this wasn't a break-in. It wasn't anything human. I waited in the break room for almost 15 minutes. I kept my ear against the door, listening for any movement outside. Nothing. The silence felt even worse. I finally worked up the nerve to crack the door open. The hallway was empty. The dusty floor showed no marks. No footprints. No drag trails. I stepped out and walked toward the security booth. I needed to find Carl. I needed to make sense of what I had seen. When I turned the corner, I froze again. Carl was sitting inside the booth with his back to me. At first I felt relieved, but something about the way he sat bothered me. His shoulders were too stiff. His head tilted slightly to one side like he was listening to something far away. Carl, I called. He didn't move. I walked closer. Hey man, Did you hear anything weird? I think someone might be in the warehouse. Still nothing. I got close enough to tap his shoulder. He fell sideways out of the chair. I jumped back and hit the wall. For a moment, I thought he was hurt or unconscious, but when he landed, his eyes opened. They weren't focused. They looked glassy, like he was staring through me instead of at me. He whispered, "You heard it." I felt my stomach drop. "What?" He blinked slowly. "It lives in the rafters. It follows sound. That thing doesn't like the lights. That is why some of them burn out every night." I stepped away from him. "What are you talking about? What happened to you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he looked up at the booth ceiling. His voice lowered to a shaky whisper. "It listens." Before I could say anything else, I heard again. That dragging sound, but this time it was above us, on the metal roof of the booth. Each scrape vibrated through the walls. Carl shut his eyes. "You need to leave. Now." I helped him stand, but he pulled away. "Not me. You." It already marked me. I backed out of the booth. I should have grabbed him. I should have forced him to come with me. But the dragging sound grew faster, like something crawling straight toward the edge of the roof. I ran. I cut across the warehouse floor, heading straight for the exit. My footsteps echoed through the aisles. Each echo felt like bait hanging in the air. I heard the thing shift above the rafters again. Heavy, sharp, following me. I didn't dare look up. I slammed into the metal exit bar and burst outside. The cold night air hit me like a slap. I sprinted across the parking lot without turning back. The streetlight flickered overhead, and for a moment the lot dipped into darkness. When it came back on, I saw something move behind one of the loading doors. A tall shadow slipping back inside. I drove home shaking. The next day I reported everything to the company. They acted polite but confused. They said Carl had resigned months ago and no one named him currently worked there. When I insisted I had spoken to him, they ended the call. The warehouse shut down 2 weeks later after structural issues were discovered. Sometimes at night, I still hear that same whisper, the one that called my name from the rafters. It always sounds a little closer. I used to work the night shift at a small packaging warehouse outside Faisalabad. Most people quit within a month because the place felt wrong after dark, but I needed the money. My shift ran from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., and for most of that time it was just me and one other guy, a quiet man named him Ron, who liked to keep to himself. The building was old, the kind of old where the walls seemed to breathe when the wind pushed through the metal sheets. The security cameras barely worked. Half the lights flickered. The manager promised maintenance every week, but nothing ever changed. Still, the place had a steady contract, so the owners didn't care as long as the work got done. My first week went smoothly. I got used to the steady hum of the conveyor belts and the clack of boxes sliding along the rollers. But by the second week, I started hearing things. At first, it sounded like someone walking on the upper floor. Slow steps, heavy, measured, the kind of footsteps that didn't belong to anyone trying to stay quiet. I asked Imran one night if he heard the noise too. He didn't even look up. He just said, "Don't pay attention. It always happens at night." He said it the way someone talks about rain or traffic. Normal, expected, but it didn't feel normal to me. Not when I began noticing other things. Tools left in places I knew I hadn't touched. Boxes neatly stacked in corners far from where we worked. The bathroom door swinging shut, even when there was no draft. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I stepped away from the main floor to get water. When I came back, the conveyor belt was already running. I hadn't turned it on yet. The power switch was near my desk. I stood there staring at it, the green light glowing like an eye. Then I heard a single footstep behind me. Just one. Close enough to make the hair on the back of my neck rise. I spun around. No one was there. The air felt thick, heavy, like something was standing nearby, but invisible. I reached for the power switch, turned the belt off, and walked back slowly. The moment I turned away, the conveyor belt clicked back to life. By itself. I refused to look back. I walked straight to Imran, who was checking inventory on a clipboard. I told him what happened. He sighed like he'd been through this before. He said, if you want to stay here, don't respond when it tries to get your attention. That word stuck in my mind. I wanted to ask what he meant. But before I could, the lights above us flickered and hummed. Then one bowl popped. A falling shard of glass nicked Imran's sleeve. He didn't even flinch. He just looked at me with tired eyes and said, you should take your break early. That was the moment I realized Imran wasn't ignoring the strange things. He was used to them. He expected them. And the worst part was that night had only just begun. I tried to step outside for my break, but the moment I pushed the door open, something fell off. The night was too quiet. Even the street dogs that usually barked at shadows were silent. I stood outside for maybe 2 minutes before something in my chest told me to get back in. When I returned to the warehouse floor, the building felt colder. I found Imran standing completely still in the center of the room, staring at the dark hallway that led to the storage units. I walked toward him, but he didn't blink or react. Imran, I said. He slowly lifted his hand and pointed toward the hallway. It's awake tonight. I felt a tight pressure in my throat. I didn't want to look, but my eyes drifted to the hallway anyway. It was pitch black, and as I stared, I swear I saw something shift inside the darkness. Not movement, more like the darkness itself was bending. Imran whispered, don't walk toward it. Don't talk to it. Don't let it know your name. His voice was shaking. That scared me more than anything else. The man who never reacted to broken lights or footsteps now looked like a child who lost his mother in a crowd. Suddenly, the hallway lights flickered on one by one all the way to the storage rooms. Then they turned off again one by one, as if something was walking under them. The sound followed. Slow, heavy, same footsteps I'd been hearing since my second week. Only this time they weren't upstairs. They were getting closer. Imran grabbed my arm. Move. Now. We backed up toward the loading bay. I heard the footsteps stop about 20 feet away. The lights above us buzzed, dimmed, then brightened again. I didn't see anyone in the hallway, but the feeling that something stood there watching was almost unbearable. Then something called my name. Not a voice. Not human. It sounded like someone trying to mimic my voice back at me, like a recording played wrong. Stretched. Crooked. Broken. Owie eyes. My skin crawled. My vision blurred for a second. Imran pushed me hard toward the emergency exit. Don't look at it, he said. I ran. He ran behind me. The door slammed open, and we burst into the cold air outside. We didn't stop until we reached the main gate. When we finally turned around, the warehouse looked normal again. No lights flickering, no movement, no sound. But the door we ran out of was slowly closing by itself. Imran quit the next morning. I quit the day after. The manager didn't even ask why. He just nodded like he already knew. A few months later, I met a man who used to work there years before us. He told me people always left the night shift. Some claimed they saw a figure standing in the hallways. Others said it whispered their names from dark corners. No one ever stayed long enough to find out what it really was. I still hear that distorted voice sometimes when I'm alone at night. I tell myself it's just memory, just stress. But deep down I know exactly what it is. And I know it didn't stay in that warehouse. It never does.